All right. Welcome to the last session of the first day of the PSConf here in track A3. Thanks for sticking around so long. It's been a long day. We're gonna talk about keeping secrets. Let us have a show of hands. Who was here in the last session by Ben Reeder? Okay. We have a great overlap here, so I can spare a few moments by not going into detail of stuff that Ben has covered. All right. First of all, let's together say a heartfelt thank you to our awesome sponsors, without whom this conference would not have been possible. Thank you very much. And of course, we'll have to consider the speaker, without whom this particular talk would not have been possible. But now you're stuck with me for the next 45 minutes, so live with it. I come from a security background, and over the last 10 to 15 years, I've developed a strong opinion about what things we as IT should and should not be doing. Because things that are not secure by design, of course, something that you think that is secure by design can still be broken, can still have a flaw in it, but that's outside your control, or at least outside your cognition. Stuff that you do know from the start that is not secure by design, you should not be doing in the first place. Because as we all stand and sit here listening to inspired talks about best practices and whatnot, your organizations are getting targeted by attackers, by malicious actors. And chances are that your organization gets popped. Chances are that there will be enough stuff laying around for a post-mortem, and you just don't want to be that asshole whose bad scripting practices leak the root password to the attacker, right? So just don't do things you know that are not secure by design to the best of your knowledge, because that's all we can do as humans. What to expect in this session? Why secret keeping is just the greatest deal there is. I more or less covered that already, because you don't want to be the one who leaked something to an outside actor. Managing expectations, we will go into what could be expected, what we could hope for future software architectures in a bit. And then the greatest part of this talk will be about secret management versus secret distribution. That is, if I don't run out of time before that. And then, if there is still 20 seconds, then I will give you a resume about tying it all together and what to take home from this talk. So, why is it such a big deal? Secrets are the only thing we have seen this. Those of you who were in the session of Ben's have seen that one string of text, be it a bearer token or an application secret or a password, are often the only thing that separates your environment, your crown jewels, from the big bad world, from somebody who could access those same services from the outside. That's why talking about Azure is so easy when doing security stuff, right? Because you can always say, yeah, everybody can access that endpoint. And if you program that endpoint in an insecure fashion, then everybody can use that insecure configuration, right? It's not as easy on premises, which is where I come from. I've worked in isolated environments quite a lot, banking, financial, manufacture, aerospace, stuff like that. And using all those shiny Azure things may not be possible in such environments, which can be a blessing or a curse. What secrets are we talking about? Classics, username and password, which in PowerShell we are accustomed to thinking of as a PS credential object. General use string scalars, we sort of saw application secrets in the course of the previous presentations. Cryptographic scalars, which are private keys, those need to be stored and sometimes transported elsewhere as well. And of course, there is security by obscurity. If you configure, those of you who still do RDP on servers probably read about changing the port from 3389 to something else to obscure your RDP endpoint from an attacker. We know now from bitter experience in some cases that that does not help much, but security by obscurity secrets are secrets nonetheless. Let's look at some reference architectures. We're going to talk about software architecture. So let's look at what contributes 80% in my perception of today's on-premises scripting worldwide. So I would attribute 30% to this. And if some of you never did anything like this in their code, even in test and development, then you're a lucky man or a woman. The rest is this. I personally have seen that like 4 times in the course of today, of the sessions that I attended. And this architecture you will find in any book about PowerShell. Get credential. This is the password part is stored as a secure string. Anybody in doubt about how secure string works? Awesome. Secure and secure string does not mean it's encrypted. It is not on Linux. It only means that it is protected in memory as long as it is stored in memory, right? That's why the .NET team does not recommend using secure string anymore for like the last 10 years. But in PowerShell, the PowerShell PS credential object architecture is based off secure string, so we're stuck with that. Secure string, you export it into a CLI XML, which produces a lot of gibberish in an XML-like file, and then you import it back, and you have your PS credential object back. We all know the disadvantages of this. You have to use that same account to decrypt the XML that you have used to encrypt it. On Linux, we don't, because it's not encrypted there, but on Windows, the XML or the password representation in the XML is encrypted using an RSA key that is stored in your user profile or in the user profile of the account doing the encryption. So you need to be that account to do the decryption. Meaning, if the secret needs to be changed, you have to go out to those machines or to those users and provide the secrets in their security context again, meaning that you have to type it or transport it by other means, and so on. Reference architectures. So, the first rule of keeping secrets for us here is don't let bad guys root your machine, because if a bad guy roots your machine, they are sitting there and can access all those private keys and, of all your users. If your machine happens to be an Active Directory member, then DP API that protects that all on Windows is broken anyway. I've got some stickers in the front on sticker swap about DP API being dead. If they have been grubbed already, I've got some more. So don't let bad guys root your machine, meaning the machine that will be using secrets, because that's where the secret will be in clear text. So what can we expect? We saw 2 software architectures presented here. One is outright bad. The other is not so bad, but inconvenient to use. For that, let's look at 2 use cases. The first one is sort of what's being talked about a lot in the context of the secret management module and also cloud management and all that. an operator who knows the secret or has some sort of access to them, maybe a private password vault or a company's password vault, uses the secrets mostly interactively to provide them to some cloud services to authenticate to Azure or GCP or something along these lines, which makes it easy and hard to manage those secrets in the same manner, because you have access to all the secrets, so you decide when and where you store and use them, but then you are the only one responsible. So nobody will do your secret management for you. If your workstation is yours and yours alone, if it's not a member in Active Directory, and if you do not log on with an Active Directory account, the second software architecture that I showed is as secure as it will get, because we always get around to DP API on Windows. Go ahead, use CLI XML. You know from the start you are the one who needs to be encrypting this. You will be the one who will be decrypting this. All is well, and no one, short of someone rooting your machine, which you shouldn't allow, first rule, no one will be able to decrypt that. If you only need secret, if you'd like your scripts to be portable in terms of giving them to a colleague or maybe publishing them to GitHub or something, use secret management. That is what it's there for. It's a prerequisite. If you don't like having prerequisites in your scripts and modules, tough luck. But it's a great prerequisite to have, because it abstracts your secret keeping from an actual technology of the vault that you'll be using. And I've listed a couple. The list is not exhaustive by any standards, but you can access lots of vaults using the secret management module. And let me show you how that works. This is the one. I've got a vault that I personally use for my personal stuff, which is KeePass. There are 2 secrets in there. I've got a master key to decrypt that, and if I want to access that via PowerShell, is it readable in the back? Thanks. So you install the Microsoft PowerShell Secret Management module, figures, because we want to use that, and you have to install some sort of secret vault. And in this case, I would like to use the KeePass, so I go to the PowerShell gallery and grab the secret management module for KeePass, which was developed by Justin Grote, who is here at the conference. So if you have problems with the secret management.KeePass, go pester him, not me. I'm just showing this. It works on my machine. So I provide the vault file where it resides, and if the vault file is there, I will just register that vault with my secret management, and I chose to only use master password, not to use AD authentication or key file for the sake of this demonstration. And if this vault is can be tested positively, so it's connected and I can authenticate to them to that vault, I can just extract the vSphere credential that I stored there previously and show name and password. Nothing fancy here. Let's just run it and see what happens. And what is happening is, hopefully, this. It asks me, it even says a KeePass master password in the username. It asks me to provide the master password. And if I did that correctly, there is my vSphere credential. Nothing fancy to see here, right? It works absolutely as expected, which brings us that was the intro slide for that, which brings us to the main problem of using vaults. Because if you're using vaults, meaning facilities that have the clear text stored elsewhere, that will provide the clear text to you if you authenticate in some manner, then you need to provide a secret to obtain the secret, which makes the problem of providing a secret to vSphere in this case, it reduces that to the problem to providing a secret to KeePass, but the problem is the same. Right? That's why secret management and all those vault-based things are great for making portable, abstracted scripts for using on your admin operator workstation where you are all these things, where you can enter the master key, when you can stick in the USB stick with a key file, you can provide MFA, all this kind of stuff. But where I come from, I don't come from interactive PowerShell so much. I come from automation. I've talked about it a lot at the last PSConf and at some previous occasions. What are the use cases that are from the automation field on-prem? I need to give a bunch of users a script, this sort of self-service automation, right? And this script, unfortunately, does not only do things to the user profile of that user, but that needs to authenticate to another system where I am not comfortable giving the user access to with their AD credential. And then after I've rolled that out, the secret changes. What do I do then? Right? That's the first use case. The second is similar. I have to run a script on a bunch of machines. I have some kind of software distribution in place, group policy, whatever. I can put the script on those machines and have it run there, but the script needs a secret. And what do I do when that secret changes? Because we've been telling people to roll passwords for like longer than they've been passwords, right? Nobody listened until they did. Now everybody chose to rotate passwords, which leads to being able to rotate passwords I provide to my machines or my users out there, right? So what can we do here? What can we wish for in terms of software architecture? One thing that we need to understand is that scripting hosts, and I'm not talking about PowerShell exclusively, any kind of scripting host where the user provides the executable content breaks trustworthy computing. Because trustworthy computing means the process that is in possession of a secret will give it to another process knowing what the other process will do with it. As soon as the other process receiving something is a scripting host, the giving process does not have any knowledge about what the target process shall do with this information, right? Let's see how close we can come to a solution to that. So the objective for today is provide a PS credential object to a script. To a script. I would like to provide a PS credential to a script, not to the machine or the user having the script. With what's in the box today, we cannot restrict visibility to a single script in the context of a single user on a single machine. But we could do that easily if we go away from using PWSH exe or PowerShell exe. So we only need to integrate the secret vault, whatever technology that is, with a script host so that the secret vault actually trusts the host, but not implicitly. It should trust the host to validate the script's identity. It should trust the host to validate the script's integrity, and maybe even validate the caller, user, or machine, and then provide a secret to that. I did a small mock-up of this, which I would like to show you. The technology that is used for storing secrets is not secure by any manner, right? So this is just a SQLite database, but what it does, the database does nothing but store the information. What the application will do is, if I pass a script to it, it will look up if the name of that script is in a database. If the name is there, it will compare its file hash to the hash stored in the database. It will check the authenticate signature if we chose to allow to not allow the missing signature. And after all those checks are done, and it is that script, it will just execute the PowerShell script, but inject a credential parameter, giving it a PS credential object derived from this username and password. It is not easy to get that secure. I am aware of that. But we could just PSConf secrets. I am not very creative, so I just called it Ceph for secrets enabled PowerShell host. And if I give it a file, and a file is a simple script. A simple script does not need any credentials, just to demonstrate that it works. Copy that as path. Script is valid because it was not in the database, and it's the script, the output of the script. And then let's have a look at another script. This is very basic also. It expects a parameter named credential. And if this parameter is passed, then it will decrypt that credential and provide name and password on the command line, on the console. So, and when we give that to our Ceph, I will post the code on GitHub after the conference, so you can. That is the wrong one. It's still the one without parameters. Here, no. Here we go. And this one is valid. The signature is not broken, the hash is not broken, and if I add something to the script, no, that is bad. I will add a couple of spaces in here, then script is not valid, and it will not, depending on what you set in the database, it will either not run the script at all, as happened in this case, or it will run it but will not pass it the credential. There could be value in that also. So this is just a mock-up of what could be possible if someone were to write this script. Of course, we all know our friends from Script Runner. We all know our friends from Automator. I expect them to do this kind of validation for us. I'm not 100% sure if they do, but if they do, they should be doing this kind of validation before passing stored credentials to scripts, right? So this is easy for those third parties because, as in Ceph, host and vault are tied together into one process. So there is no one process trusting another. It's just routines within one process trusting each other, right? But this is not, this is probably not very easy to do. That was the mock-up. Which possibilities does, and I'm talking about Windows most of the time because that's where I come from. I tried to implement such things on Linux as well. I didn't on a Mac. It's basically all the same there also, only there is no default certificate store, default secret store like DPAPI protected user profile part on those platforms. So we'll talk about that in a bit. So how could we, in theory, implement such a trusted host design? Windows has a mechanism called protected service. It's intended for early launch anti-malware, antivirus programs, so that they can be trusted to inspect stuff in pre-boot. There is a validation procedure for that, but the anti-malware vendor of your choice might choose to implement a PowerShell host, which would run in this protected service context and trust a certain executable to validate scripts, to validate signatures, hashes, and the user's identity against an internal database or an external vault, right? So protected service has the ability to prove the identity of another process before communicating with it. The other thing that I'm actually thinking of implementing in the near future is a service running as a system, spawning a user mode shell for a user. This is not the same level of security and isolation, of course, but should be fairly easy to implement, and you could treat your machine as trusted and users as untrusted, and at least provide that functionality. Make sense? It doesn't, I know. It's too late. Right. So, after we have seen that it's not easy to implement a trusted PowerShell host, let's talk about how we could make this process of providing a PS credential object to a not script, but a user running a script or a machine running a script in its system context at least more secure. And almost everybody was in Ben's session. So one of the last things Ben showed, the one before the last, was certificate-based authentication. Now it wasn't certificate-based authentication, it was a certificate-based secrets distribution. Because the problem with using vaults is that there is clear text in the vault. A vault, by definition, is something holding a clear text so that it can give it to you if you provide enough authentication, be it certificates or something along passwords, API keys, or whatever. You can make the process of handling certificates in your environment immensely more secure if you split between the secret management. That would be the place where you rotate your password when it gets rotated in AD or whatever system, from the distribution of that secret to your target systems. And again, Azure Key Vault or Azure Application Identity with certificates is exactly that thing. So instead of we had that problem, right? Provide a secret to access a secret. Instead of providing a master secret to the end entity to let it access the production secret, you switch to using secrets they already have. And the secrets they already have could be certificates, private keys. And there is a commandlet for that, and it's been in PowerShell for quite some time. I'm not sure if that was in 2, but it was definitely in 3. CMS, Cryptographic Message Service, is an RFC from, I don't know, 2003 or whatever. It's a very old RFC. It got updated using newer cryptographic algorithms and whatnot. But you encrypt, you protect a message using the recipient's public information, making sure that only that recipients who possess the private information, private key in this case, are decrypt that. You can make a self-signed certificate. The important thing is the key usage OID, which I provided here. You can have your enterprise PKI provide those certificates, and with Microsoft or other more advanced PKIs, you can do something like auto-enrollment, right? So that nobody ever gets to see that key. The user or the computer acquires a certificate, and nobody ever saw the private key in the whole process, right? But the self-signed certificate works exactly in exactly the same manner. And in using your private PKI, you could make these certificates very long-lived. In my testing, it doesn't even matter if they expire. No guarantee on that. But it might not matter if they even expire. So, how could such a secret delivery system, what could that look like? You've got a vault somewhere, right? A vault holding clear text. You need to provide this clear text, and PS credential is clear text. It's just packed into a secure string, right? You need to provide that clear text to, in this case, a user. How would we do that? A user acquires a document encryption certificate and gives the admin of this vault the key, the public key, mind you. The admin never sees the private keys. The admin uses whatever technology. The admin is that matrix operator. He is in charge of all the secrets and clear text. He could absolutely use secret management with a vault of their choosing to extract the secret from the vault using their admin powers. And then it does a protect CMS message over the text representation of that PS credential object and stores it somewhere. Now, we have a facility here that only stores objects that only those end entities can decrypt. That means the user does, if we trust cryptography. Okay, the premise for this is that we assume that AES 265, which is the algorithm used by these commandlets, is secure. If we do not assume that, this session is over. But so is anything else that based off public key cryptography. So AES is secure. So this blue database in here, it's only hosting blobs that other entities can decrypt. So the user does not have to authenticate, because even if I, as not that user, get hold of that blob, I don't have the key to decrypt it. I would even go so far and as to say the user does the transport of that blob to the user does not necessarily need to be encrypted if it's not within your power, right? Because AES 265 is what NIST considers secure enough for the foreseeable future. If I were to guess, the foreseeable future will end in 5 years. But for now, it's where we are. So the user, and then the admin part is over. The part where the clear text were stored somewhere in the RAM of the admin's workstation, it's over at this point. So the user uses whatever protocol to acquire that credential. runs unprotected CMS message using his private key, and he's got the clear text. And it's not a mock-up. It's actually, it's dumbed down from what I used in production to be able to demonstrate that. It's a really, really simple API, so that is for Thursday. Here's secret delivery framework. It's a very, very basic .NET, ASP.NET API. It only has one command, right? API thumbprint of the certificate and the name of the certificate. Yes, I haven't logged on to the SQL server that's behind that, so that could take a bit. But I have a user here named Alice who's got a certificate in her document encryption certificate in her store. We're getting there. So here's the database that does nothing fancy at all, because this thing does not need to be secure, right? I store the certificates in one table, thumbprint for identification, subject for me, admin, to be able to verify who that is, and then the certificate itself in base 64. Clients is just an additional feature of restricting usage to certain IPs. And here are the creds. Here's the vSphere admin. It has been encrypted for this certificate, and I think that it's Alice. Yeah, I know it can be confusing. It's my face on all those desktops, but it's Alice. That it's Alice, and if we look at the hash, yeah, it's the one. 55 through A1, that's the hash. So to basically receive the credential, go away from that API, I would only have to say API, then the certificate hash, and I get that CMS blob back, right? So if I am Alice, I would be able to do something with it, namely decrypt it and unprotect CMS message and restore that PS credential. And of course, we can do that in PowerShell. I have a module for that will get published next Monday. But for the sake of this demo, I will not be using the modal, but just the script using the one function. So what does it do? It will basically go through all the certificates in the users or the machine store, depending if that is started as a machine or as a user, having this document encryption extension. And for each one that is found, it will try to resolve from DNS where that website is. I could hard code it, I could store that in a JSON config file, but then I would have to distribute that config to the machines. For Windows, it's great using service DNS records or maybe a predefined host name. And if I found the web service and I found a certificate, I just construct this API that is probably not readable from the back, right? But nobody is interested because that's why it doesn't matter. So you basically construct this API string using the thumbprint of the certificate that you found in the store and the name that was supplied by the calling script. and do an invoke REST method. And if you do get a binary base 64 blob with a CMS method, the API is programmed so that it will not return anything if the certificate does not match, if there is no matching record in the database. It will not disclose anything about why it doesn't return stuff, right? It just, if the IP is not on the allow list, if the certificate is not stored there, if the certificate has been specifically disabled in the database, it will just return nothing. So, and then it's a JSON file that is encrypted in that CMS message. We decrypt it, and it converts back to a PS credential object, and just for the sake, no, it does not. The password is in clear text in there, and we construct a PS credential object, and then we return that PS credential object. So let's run it and see if it works. Right? Here is the verbose output from get invoke REST method. So Alice did exactly the same HTTPS call that I did previously in my browser, with the difference that Alice is able to decrypt this cred and I wasn't. Right? So if we just go ahead and get network credential password, and it's probably a really dumb password because I did that in a hurry. Yeah, okay, I can't save it anymore, but I can run it. Right. Okay. So this is a very dumb password, just monkey on the keyboard or cat on the keyboard, right? So, but that's how it works. Nobody else, at least as long as DPAPI is intact and cryptography works, is able to decrypt that credential other than Alice, and the credential, or the whole credential distribution signal chain is not protected by anything. So, as I discovered this, I've been working on this on and off for the last 4 or 5 years in different environments. I thought it would be a great candidate for cross-platform secrets distribution. And it is. But there are a couple of smallish dragons along that path. PowerShell 6, which was current at that time, didn't have the CMS message commandlets. PowerShell 7 does now. So I had to roll my own. The X509 namespaces in .NET Core were there. So you were absolutely able to roll your own CMS message. Linux has no generic certificate store like your private certificate store for user or machine. And this is a problem because you're basically down to storing certificates, including private keys, as PAM files, and only protecting them by access rights. Which brings us back to don't let them root your machine, right? Because on Linux, access rights are supposed to be unbreakable, right? Right? I've been told that for the last 20 years. So a minor grievance was that you can't do a resolve DNS name on Linux, which obsoletes SRV records for the purpose of finding the web service. But you can always get around that by distributing the configuration in some way. So, and I did not go over time because I have 30 seconds left. Do not let the bad guys root your machine. DPAPI is on Windows potentially the weakest link. Separating secret management from secret distribution helps. Cryptography helps even more. And the machine using the secret is that you shouldn't get the bad guy's root, because that machine will always have the secret in clear text. Thank you very much. Questions?
The API web service you showed us, is it a special machine inside the on-prem network?
Yes, it's it's all on the domain controller. I don't have that much power on this laptop.
And what is this for a service? How can I use it?
It's IIS. I will post the code on GitHub come Monday. It's just a basic IIS web service that accesses a very basic SQL database. Any other questions? Because we're over time already? No. Everybody's asleep. Thank you very much. Enjoy the evening. See you tomorrow.